After coaching hundreds of chiropractors for over 20 years, I've seen chiropractors grow and have massive success. In fact, even starting with chiropractors seeing as little as 25 to 30 patient visits per week, up to chiropractors seeing 1,500 to 2,000 patient visits per week, there are some consistent systems that I've seen that predetermine the growth. And I can basically tell, depending on what type of systems that the chiropractor is using, what volume they will be at currently. And I'm going to go through this in this video with you to show you exactly what systems, and you can classify yourself into the systems that we're talking about and the maximum level of people that you'll be able to see if you're using these systems. So to grow, there's going to be certain strategies and certain things that you'll need to put in place to be able to see more people, care for more people, retain more people, build the practice that you truly want to build if you want to take your practice from a real pain-based practice into more of a wellness-based practice where people just love to come and be in your presence, know the value of lifetime chiropractic care, and want to have their spine and nervous system corrected from the time that they're born through the time that they perish from this earth. And if that's the type of practice that you want to build, keep with us and we'll follow through and talk about the systems that we need to install into an office to get those types of results. Okay, here we go. This is the 6 secrets to high volume practice growth. Well, let's start with the lowest volume. This is what we call the all-in-one initial new patient experience. So this is, if you're starting with this level, this is the all-in-one, I'm going to call it. And what that means is that the new patient comes into your office, however they come in, whether they come in from some sort of event that you've had or a referral or you're doing online marketing, however they enter into your office and they get their exam and they get their quote unquote treatment. And I know I don't like using that word treatment, but their first adjustment, their first level of care on the same day as their exam. So it's the all in one, day one, and they get everything. And the problem is that there's no patient education. This becomes a very pain-based type of experience. It's all about the person's symptoms. It's all about their pain. Typically, the exam is orthopedic testing, which is all pain focused. There's no real measurement of quantitative evaluation. It's the treatment of symptoms. So we're going to put treatment of symptoms as opposed to correcting the root cause of the problem. And typically, what happens is that patients that start in an office where they get everything right off the bat, their exam, their first treatment or first adjustment, there's no level of education, and they typically are gone when the pain's gone. So, whether the pain is gone after 1 or 2 visits or 3 visits, whatever concerns that they have, they're gone. They have no reason to stay. So, patient, it's very short term. There's no wellness care. It's really rare that you would have a patient base that's coming in without symptoms. And the other thing, the other problem with this is that sometimes patients have this predetermined idea of how long they should be in the office. In other words, maybe their medical doctor has told them or a friend has told them, hey, try it for 4 visits or try it for 2 weeks or try it whatever. And they have this in their mind. And if the pain is not gone by that time, they quit anyway. So sometimes they quit if the pain's gone because they think that they're better, or they quit because the pain's not gone, but they had an expectation that the pain should be gone by that point. So this is a very low volume type of office. And typically, if it's an all-in-one type of office, the pain-based office where they're getting their quote unquote treatment on day one, typically it would max out about 120 patient visits per week at the most. In fact, that would even be high. In fact, most of these offices would see well below 100 visits. And in many cases, the chiropractor is very focused on therapy. It's very therapeutic. So a lot of the time is spent with the patient doing things to substantiate the fee. Typically, it's a fee per visit. So it's a pay per visit type of basis. Patient is paying for 1 visit at a time, and the fee or the treatment time, excuse me, the treatment time is typically 10, at least 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes even more. I've seen some therapy type of offices do up to 30 minutes per patient. So it's tough to see any type of high volume at that level. So typically it's around 100 people per week at most, and they would need a lot of new patients to replace the ones that are constantly leaving. Okay, so let's go on to number two. Well, the second level, if you want to bump it up a little bit, is what we call the day one, day two reported findings. So day one, two, and we're going to call it ROF. So day one typically is the exam. We do the exam on day one, and in most cases, or the majority of cases, the patient wouldn't receive care on day one. And that's the whole idea. The exam is meant to start to accumulate some sort of level of findings so that that can be reported to the patient on day two. So we're starting to get to the root cause of the problem. There's usually some element of conversation that talks about root cause, whether it's using the term subluxation, whether it's the fact that the person has some pressure on their nervous system, some sort of interference on their nervous system. So usually the chiropractor is starting to talk about this root cause type of problem. There may be some measure of testing. So it might be posture, maybe range of motion. It could be maybe there's use of a nerve scan or even x-ray at this point. Now, typically, chiropractors that do this in this level of care would use X-ray as a diagnostic tool, right? So X-ray becomes diagnostic. I'm going to call it DX for diagnostic. And the problem with that is that it's a good way to show the patient where the problem areas are. You can show them disc degeneration, osteophytes, arthritic changes, alignment changes in their spine, which relate to nervous system problems. So this is a better step. This is a step in the right direction from the all-in-one person, but the goal here is trying to get the patient through their symptomatic stage and onto a maintenance care. So there's typically some level of maintenance care. Usually offices that are doing this day one, day two close with a one-on-one report of findings, the maximum amount of people they would see is typically about 180 to 220 per week, which is a good, healthy practice. I mean, you can certainly make a very good living seeing that number of people. But if you want to get to the next level, there are things that have to be implemented here. So we're going to go on to number three here. So what is number three? Well, number three is where we take it to the next level. We say, okay, well, we're going to do a day one, day two, and typically we would add in a health talk. There's some level of education for the patients that are coming in. So, and that health talk can be part of the day two process, or it can be an extra thing. Usually it's an optional thing where you get a certain percentage of patients being involved in that. But again, the exam is designed to look for a root cause. Okay, so we're looking at some level of causative function rather than just symptomatic change. So we're moving away from that orthopedic testing into some sort of causative testing. And like again, that could be posture, range of motion, nerve scans, or x-rays, or other tests that might measure that grip strength. If we're doing range of motion, it might be quantitative, where we're using an actual goniometer. There's going to be some level of education. So we might be showing the patient a nerve chart, some education. Okay, so there might be a nerve chart, and we can show how the nerves come out of the spine. And if the spine is misaligned or subluxated, it's going to affect those nerves. And we can actually show the patient where those nerves are going to the organs and start to tie in the fact that they may have some musculoskeletal pain. But if it is coming from an underlying cause at the spine, it is affecting the neurology, and that is causing some level of organ type of change. So the health talk would focus on that or expand on that. And the health talk might get into nutritional problems and lifestyle things and things to stay well. So it's a real approach to wellness outside of the medical model. Okay, so that this is a good way to take your practice again to the next level. And I've seen practices that do this type of system typically get to around 300 patient visits per week, which again is a very good practice. So but if we want to take our practice to the next level and we want to start seeing more families and we want to start having people really commit to long-term corrective type of care, then there are certain things that we need to put in. So let's go to number four here. Number four is what we call the day one. So we're going to call it D1, D2, and then we're going to call it a doctor's report. So now the doctor's report typically becomes a more of an X-ray type of corrective care report. So usually a chiropractor that gets into this level of care, this is a higher level of structural corrective care. So you start doing some corrective type of structure and you're actually measuring now X-rays. So X-rays become more of an assessment and a way to monitor quantitatively how the person is changing through the level of chiropractic care. And so the goal is to teach them that the misalignment of their spine is affecting their nervous system and the root cause of not only the symptoms that they feel, but also their inability to express a full level of health. So the doctor's report is really a call to action for them and an eye-opening event with some real concern and urgency to make sure that they're getting under care. So at this level of care, there's that higher level structural process. Patients do some level of corrective therapy in addition to their adjustments in the office. So the chiropractor may have some therapy units. Maybe there's some traction units in the office. Person might have wobble discs. So there's some warm-up exercises to do before the adjustments. So the adjustment process becomes a bigger deal to make sure that we're getting some level of correction, some level of change. And that's relayed to the patient through this education process. And there may be some head weighting or body weighting, head weights. So, and again, now the chiropractor may deliver some level of home care as well. So there's probably some home care implementation where the person is actually taking home some rolls or weights where they're doing them at home between their adjustments. And again, that's a great way to keep them engaged and help them to really start to see some real good changes when we do the reexamination. So typically in office in this level of care, when they're doing the day one, day two doctor's report, uh, we'll have a structured care plan. So there's a care plan, and most of the care is delivered under this care plan. It would be rare for somebody to be in the office doing a pay per visit because that's completely incongruent for what this type of office is delivering. So there's typically no pay per visit. Most patients or all of the patients will be on some level of a care plan. And the other thing here is that there will be some corrective monitoring. So there will be a re-exam process set up where the initial visit findings, so whether that's nerve scans or ranges of motion, postural pictures, or even X-ray and measurements on X-ray, will be compared on certain levels through that care plan. So the re-exam has some quantitative measure. And again, this is to take away the pain mentality. So the patient's not thinking of pain anymore. They're more focused on correction, getting interference away from the nervous system, getting structural pressure off of their nerves, seeing that structural change in their spine, and looking at those root causes that have caused the problem to start in the first place. So an office that's doing this typically has a well-trained team. There's some team training involved, and I mean, I've seen offices in this level, and typically they would very easily get to 500 patient visits per week. And that could be a single doctor even seeing 500 patient visits per week. Maybe it's one doctor with one associate, but that's very, very doable. There's a high level of maintenance care. When patients start care and they become engaged, there's much less attrition. They stick around for the long term. And then we can take it to the next level, even beyond that. Say, okay, well, this is number 5. And this is what we call the day 1, day 2, day 3 doctor's report. And this is a different system. And this is a highly systematized office. So the office has a lot of systems in place. It's very consistent delivery, highly systematized. And the systems are trained on very regularly by the team. In fact, there's usually it's at least once a week training, if not more, where the team would role play, go over what happens on day 1, go over what the staff says, go over what the doctor says, go over the transitions, go over what happens on day 2. Typically, there's involvement between day 1 and day 2 in the form of a doctor's phone call to the patient. There's a lot of patient communication here to really build this out. So patients typically do some level of corrective therapy again with regard to their adjustments. There's the implementation of the home care, whether it's posture wedges, rolls, traction units, head weights, and so on. There's always care plans and corrective monitoring in an office like this. So you're not going to find an office at this level of care. So when you get above 500 patient visits per week, you will not find an office doing pay per visit type of care. It just doesn't happen. It's too chaotic and too random when people are paying per visit, and there's no way you can get to that level of care. So care plans are implemented, and there's this corrective monitoring. There's a high level corrective care. There's a high level of families. And this is the whole idea of adding the day two, families under care. And the whole idea of the day two is a bridge. So when we have the day one exam, and then it goes to day two, which is typically their first adjustment. And there's obviously the day one phone call that happens there. The day two, there's the certain scripting to find out about the spouse and how the family feels about them under care, and then asking if the family would be willing to be there and be supportive of that person through seeing their x-rays and getting the spouse in to see the x-rays at the doctor's report on day three. And what happens is that that's when families become inspired to again start care. It's very common for the spouse to start care and the children to also start care. So this is the office that looks at one new patient equals four new patients. And that's the big difference. So we see a huge difference when we're doing this type of system, because it's like an exponential new patient machine, because you're starting to focus on families. Typically, an office that's in this is really mission based, and they're going to have multiple events. So, events in the community. So, it's going to be a lot of community involvement. And you're going to see, doctors in this level of stage or this level of care, this level of practice doing, there's going to be multiple things. They might be doing talks. It could be talks at companies, talks at support groups, dinners, like patient appreciation or community appreciation dinners. You're going to be doing lunch and learns, or even out doing screenings. And, in most of these offices, that want to grow, you're going to have a very strong online presence, meaning your website's up to date. So website, your social media is very actively promoted. You have somebody in charge of that, or you've outsourced that to somebody. You'll have some maybe even doing some paid ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, or even Google advertising. But basically there's an image and a brand that's being cast out to the community. So the community becomes very aware of who you are, what you stand for, what your mission is, what your big vision is. And your associates, you might have associates that want to come work with you to help you adjust all the people you're going to see, or independent contractors or locums. Typically, this is an office that wouldn't close. The main doc goes away on holidays. The office stays open because they have the people in place to do that. So it's very, very structured, very systematized. And typically, an office like this, I mean, I've seen offices 1,000 per week or more, up to 2,000, 2,500 per week. So the limits are endless once we get into this level of care, because it's very structured and people are into a system where they're highly educated. So even though they may have come in because of pain, or they may be attracted because of an advertisement or some discussion on some symptomatic condition, the transition through the day one, day two, day three, the doctor's report, the urgency that's created, the education that's delivered, patients typically change their mindset into a wellness level of care. And that's the big difference. So if you want to grow your practice to that level, this is what typically has to happen in that. So, and there, I'm going to take it, there's even one more above and beyond that. And this is something from old time chiropractors that had massive, massive practices, single docs that were seeing 1,500, 2,000 people a week, very, very commonly, is that this was kind of a change the world mentality. And the big thinking is that for people to even begin chiropractic care, they had to get the big idea. So there was education in place to educate them, to inform them of really the whole principle of chiropractic, talking to them about the fact that there is an innate intelligence, there's an energy in the body. The body is designed, it's created to heal. When you cut your finger, the body inherently knows how to heal, but everything works through the nervous system. So the body is a self-healing, self-adapting organism, and everything works through the nervous system. And then when there's interference in the nervous system, especially by that interference caused by a subluxation or a vertebral subluxation that is out of alignment, or displaced in some way that causes that interference on those nerves, that disrupts the flow of nerve energy in the body, and that decreases the function and healing of that body. And that message would be told to people before they start care. So in order for them to start care, they would have to come to an orientation. So this is the change the world system. And typically a chiropractor that's practicing in this way would do this orientation first. So they would have multiple orientations through the week. People would come into a group orientation and they would start by learning the principle of chiropractic, and then they would have their exam after that. And so they would go into that exam with this knowledge. And also, too, it would weed people out that really didn't want that. If they just wanted quick pain relief, the doctor was very forthright in saying, this is not the place for you. This is not a place where we are treaters of pain. We are just not treaters of pain. We are here to correct subluxation. We are here to allow the body an opportunity by removing interference to express its full life potential. So the group orientation would happen through the week. You teach people the principle. Exam is done after that. And then those people would turn into very mission-based patients and typically would be with that chiropractor for a lifetime. And those were the chiropractors that were building huge practices, 1,500, 2,000 and beyond per week, because they had an army of people who really understood what chiropractic was all about. So I hope you find that helpful. Let me know in the comments what level or what category you feel that your practice is in. And let's figure out and let me know in the comments what you feel your biggest constraint is that's stopping you from getting to the next level of care. Hey, if you like these videos and you're finding some value in this, I'd appreciate if you could just like and subscribe. Let's help get this to more people, and we will see you on the next video.